All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like for you to imagine yourself at a table at your favorite restaurant, whichever one you want. And you're sitting at this table, and the waiter or waitress brings out 3 plates. Those plates, sets them down right in front of you. You don't know what's on any of the plates. The first plate may have something you really like. The next plate might have something that's mid, I guess you could say. And then there's the third plate that has something pretty crappy. And that is what it's like to forecast over the next couple of weeks with the couple of systems that we're having. So let's talk about them. The time is 9:56 a.m. and it is the first day of February. Welcome to another update from Great Lakes Weather. Hopefully everybody is doing well today, and we have a few things to talk about. I know I posted on my page the potential for severe weather that we might have February 5th and 6th. And while that still is in the running, it really looks a lot less likely. And I'm going to show you why that's the case, especially with the model discrepancies that we have up to this point now. And then we're going to talk about a few snow systems that we have coming up between February 6th and Valentine's Day. So we're going to talk about all of those different systems in this video. The first thing we're going to start off with is, again, that potential for heavy snow, okay? Because I think that's kind of going to be the bigger story. Heavy snow potential exists for portions of, Michigan, right here, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northern Indiana, Northern Ohio. Again, this is a slight risk, so again, confidence is low. But there are some model outputs that are showing the potential for a few systems to make their way through. Currently, the models are kind of displaced and a little further to the south. We'll have to see how that pans out. But my guess is they'll probably start to shift a little bit more in our direction. We'll have to see how things change up to that point. And you can see the moderate risk does go up into the New England areas. But you can see that the Climate Prediction Center, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is saying that there could be some snow across portions of this region between February 8th and February 14th. So we're going to break down, I guess, the long range with that, because again, that's a long range model. We don't really want to go into too much detail with that just yet. We are going to focus on the February 6th system first, because there's a lot of ways this could go. And the latest models are shifting it further south, which for those of you who don't like severe weather in the further north, that's good news. But the bad news is that that could lead to more ice and more snow, especially ice. I'm seeing a good setup for some freezing rain across portions of southern Michigan, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, and it could be the ice storm that we get this season. So it's definitely going to be something we're going to watch. Okay, here's a CSU MLP model. Again, it's kind of a conglomeration of a lot of the different variables that could produce severe weather. And you can see there was a nice bubble of yellow across portions of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois for this day, February 5th, and that's practically disappeared. So again, I did say it was a low confidence. There was a high uncertainty with this, and that has verified. You can see that that potential has really gone down. And there's a lot of, although we'll have a good amount of instability, and we'll have some ingredients for severe weather. Again, it was a long shot that we would see something this early in the season. I know we saw it last year around this time in Illinois when I caught that tornado last year, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case again this year. So that's good news, I would say. But let's take a look at the February 6th system still regardless. Okay, so this is the level of instability. This is the most unstable parcel of CAPE, which again may not mean necessarily the CAPE at the surface, just CAPE that is displaced in portions of the atmosphere in different levels. And you can see once we start to get to February 6th, we're approaching February 5th right now. You can see that there's a plume of instability that will make its way up. We're going to have a warm air mass that's going to be surging into the eastern continent of the United States, and that will bring with it the potential for an unstable environment. And you can see that there's going to be about 1,000, 2,000 joules of CAPE displaced somewhere in the atmosphere. Does that mean it's going to be placed in portion, or it's going to be placed at the surface? No, highly doubt it. Again, surface CAPE is a lot different than CAPE that's in the upper levels of the atmosphere. The instability still does generate thunderstorm potential, so there could be some thunder and lightning with some of this precipitation that comes through. But again, I don't really see that severe threat really materializing as much as I did as in terms of a couple days ago. So again, we'll see if the models change, but right now I would say places in southern Indiana, southern Ohio might have that better shot at seeing thunderstorm potential. For us in Michigan and northern Indiana, northern Ohio, northern Illinois, I think the potential exists for some ice. This is also showing kind of the wind dynamics that are going to be associated with the system. And you can see that the Euro, which is highly different from the GFS, by the way, so there's a lot of discrepancy there. The Euro is saying that there's going to be some support in the upper levels, the mid layer as well, with the wind speed, okay? So that's going to provide some support for some of those storms to possess for some of that precipitation to have some shear within it, and that's going to be our primary thing to watch out for in terms of severe weather, and as well as the instability that could come up along with this. But right now, most of those storms appear to be elevated in the atmosphere, which again, not surprising given the fact that we are going to have some cool temperatures lower down at the surface. But that's kind of the thing we're watching out for in terms of the thunderstorm activities. Are we going to have the support for it in terms of instability, in terms of temperature, which again, it's looking like it's going to stay further south. The warmer temperatures will. So that's what's in question right now. Let's take a look at how this plays out in the precip models. Okay, so we got a little bit of snow that might move through on Sunday, and then as we approach Tuesday, Wednesday, you can start to see that storm starting to materialize a little bit across portions of Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, starting off initially as freezing rain, it appears. Okay, so progressing this forward as we go through, you can see that there's going to be some pockets of heavier freezing rain within this showing up on the Euro. Now, I will say this is not agreeing with the GFS much at all yet. Okay, it does agree that there's going to be a system coming through, but the GFS is actually portraying it further south. Okay, so that's actually targeting the freezing rain even into southern Indiana, southern Ohio. But watch as we go through this. You can see this is Wednesday evening, so at about 7 p.m. Progressing forward, you can see that there are going to be some cells that pop up on the southern flank and also down here. You get a sounding out ahead of these. This is on the Euro, by the way. And you can see the marginal severe potential, but take a look at your surface temperatures. Okay, your surface temperatures are in the low 40s. Okay, and then there's a sharp increase in temperatures as you go further up. That basically is a high indicator that these storms will likely be elevated, and an elevated storm will have much greater difficulty attaching to the surface in any way, shape, or form. So that's the question right now. The further south these storms will play, the better chance they'll have of attaching further to the surface where the temperature, like look at this sounding right here in Missouri. Okay. This sounding right here, you can see that there's not that sharp increase in temperature, right? It actually is somewhat surface-based here. So you have that TOR sounding right there, and you have that SRH values well into the 300s with surface CAPE and CAPE up in the mixed layer as well. That is a sounding that could have potential for some severe weather, including tornadoes down in Missouri. Okay, that's kind of the interesting factor there. But as you go to these storms that are in portions of Indiana and Ohio, look at the temperatures here. Just above freezing being shown with a sharp increase in temperature as you go up to the 1 kilometer level. So that sharp increase, if that sharp increase is present, that's going to keep the storms elevated that do develop. However, if we get the temperatures at the surface to warm up pretty significantly to where we don't have this, that is when the severe weather potential would likely increase a little bit more. So that's just something to keep in mind. I don't think there's going to be severe weather with these storms out here, though, because, again, these are out ahead of the main boundary. So that's kind of something to keep in mind with that as well. But look at this right here. This is what we really want to focus on. This freezing rain potential could cause some pretty hectic travel headaches across portions of southern Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Ohio. And again, as I say these things, there's still a lot of likelihood that this could shift north or south. So that's kind of the question that is still in play here, because we're going to compare it to the GFS in just a second. But as we go forward, you can see by about 1 a.m., there's multiple cells that are kind of ongoing across portions of Indiana, Ohio. You get a sounding out ahead of this one in central Indiana. Again, you can see that temperature gradient. You have temperatures in the upper 30s. So again, that's showing just mainly rain potential. And you do have that strong directional shear, but look at where your cloud base is. It's pretty up there. Again, it's likely not going to be attached to the surface. So any of these cells, again, they may have some thunder and lightning in them. Wouldn't be surprised to see that. But in terms of severe weather potential, if we don't get that temperature increase at the surface, that's what's going to kind of damage our severe weather potential. Really, the ice potential, though, will be strong with this if we tend to stay well below freezing with that sharp temperature gradient aloft. This is a prime freezing rain setup, I would say, for whatever region will get impacted by this. So again, primary takeaway from this, there is a chance for severe weather. That will be on the southern flank, but the chance seems to be overall lower as we get further north. And I don't think it's going to be, again, I think areas south of Indianapolis are really under the gun for that, and it's not looking likely. On the northern flank, on the upper side, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, southern Michigan, right now, based on the current models, it looks like there could be some ice. And again, this keep in mind, there's still a few days of leeway we have between this day. But potential for ice there. And then on the northern flank, you see also a little bit of snow that's going to come along with this. But right now, that target area does appear to be southern Michigan for the ice. And you can see that boundary starting to form as we get into Thursday morning. There might be some stronger storms on that flank there too. But progressing forward, you can see we start to clear out by February 7th, and things are peaceful and quiet until the next system comes next weekend. So here's the ice accumulations being shown by by this model here, the Euro. You can see that it's really putting out a nice strip of a few tenths of an inch of ice for portions of Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and portions of Ohio as well. Again, likely going to change, and it would be interesting to see how this agrees with some of the other models, because I think it's probably going to shift further south as we do this. Okay, the Euro is kind of the one that's been a bit more bullish in regards to placing it northward, and I will say the GFS has been shifting northward, and the Euro has been shifting slightly further south. So that kind of dynamic is showing that it might be more a little even further south than what is being shown here in terms of this map here. And that's, again, that's my own personal judgment. Could change in time as well. Snowfall accumulation, again, I don't know how much we're going to see in terms of snow. It's not really going to be too much. Unless you're in the Upper Peninsula, you'll see that good amount of snow. But places north of that freezing rain barrier, you could see maybe 2 to 5 inches of snow if this model does verify the way it's going to, the way it says. So compare this to the GFS. Very different scenario here. Okay, if you look at the GFS, you have that system that comes through on Sunday, but as we get into Wednesday, you can see, yep, there's a system. Okay, but look at how this system plays out in the GFS. It almost doesn't even touch Michigan. Okay, it really just stays down in Indiana and Ohio, gives some freezing rain to portions of central Indiana, central Ohio, but a lot less in that regard too. You don't really see too much down there. So the GFS is actually playing this a lot weaker than some of the other models are. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, that though the Euro is playing this out as going to be a stronger system, the GFS is like, no. So that's kind of why it's still a very questionable scenario. So I'm saying this because probably good to explain. You're probably seeing a lot of model outputs being put on social media, but seeing them in, I guess, a pattern where they're put together kind of gives you an idea of how things could change later on. So let's take a look at the instability also being shown for the Euro. And again, the instability being shown by the Euro, much different than the GFS. You can see the GFS, the instability gradient doesn't even make it up into the Great Lakes region. Okay, so that's a pretty significant difference than the Euro, which means that the confidence still for anything happening across portions of the Great Lakes is low, quite low. So we want to make sure we keep that in mind as we take a look at some of the stuff that we will see in the next coming days. Now, if we look at the precip type and the precip rate, you can see, again, this is the Great Lakes region, the entirety of it, and as we go forward, you can see there's that system being shown by the GFS. Again, not as impressive as the Euro. Progressing it forward, you can see that it moves through. And then behind that, what you're going to start to see is a few other systems making their appearance on the GFS model. Now, how are these going to evolve? We do not know as we approach into the long range. But we're going to watch these systems as they begin to adjust to the different variables that occur over the next few days. And we will see how these will result in the heavy snow potential that the CPC is talking about in that map we showed at the very beginning of the video. So I know this was kind of a long video, but it's giving you an idea that we are still in an active pattern. Okay, will that active pattern bring about more intense weather? Don't know. Okay, that's still up in the question, but it is fair to say that it's going to be just a good idea to keep an eye on the latest messages regarding some of the upcoming storms that are coming through. So make sure to subscribe and stay updated. Again, live storm chasing is going to be a lot different this year with Starlink. I appreciate your guys' support and the support of Michigan Storm Chasers in that. It's going to be a huge change. I am so excited for what is to come with this storm chasing season. So thanks all for your support, and we'll continue rolling out some videos later on, and we'll see you all later.